Hi, I'm Nairy, and in this video I'll be taking you through the Awakened Leviathan encounter. You may have seen clips of this fight already, and as hard as it may look in the Enrage Phase, I'll show you what you need to do to highly simplify the fight so you too can get your hands on the highly coveted Ancient Blood Torva kit to craft your own Sanguine Torva set. If you would like more information on this video or any of the other cheese guides I make, click more info on the movie information box on YouTube to learn more. Also be sure to subscribe, as only 10% of you that watch my videos are actually subscribed, so if the video helps you and you want to help my channel grow, click the subscribe button to the left to be automatically notified as I release new guides.
Just do it!
Now, if you're not already familiar with a standard Leviathan encounter, I'd recommend watching one of the various guides out there and practicing the basic mechanics of the fight first. Now, much like the normal encounter, at its core the fight does remain mostly the same. However, boulder management and your ability to follow a few simple tricks in the Enrage Phase will be the key to your success here. Firstly, I'll cover plugins like NPC highlights and radius markers, go into gear setups, then go into the mechanics and what you need to do, and finally, I'll take you through a few tips and tricks. So to start with, let's go over the plugins. If you don't already use these, you want to go to the RuneLite plugin hub and enable tile indicators for both your true tile and destination tile. Pick a different colour for each. I chose green for my current tile and red for my destination tile. This is needed for three reasons. First, it'll allow you to see where your character truly is relative to the position of both the tornado and the lightning. Secondly, it trivializes the boulder placement, which I'll cover later. And 3, in the final Enrage Phase you can easily identify which tile your character is on and when it has reached certain tiles, which you can use as soft indicators for when you hit the Leviathan. And believe me, you have a lot going on then, so the more brain power you can free up for switching prayers and hitting, the better. Next up, NPC highlights will allow you to mark and highlight the tornado to easily identify where it is relative to your own position. Insert the following ID to mark the tornado and pick a colour to your liking. I prefer just to highlight its tile, but you can choose its hull or true tile if you'd like. Moving on to ground markers, you'll want to import the ground markers you can see on screen now. I've left a link to a paste bin which you can copy from and import to your own room by left clicking the world map and selecting Import Ground Markers. And finally, radius markers. You'll want to enable these and copy the following IDs and settings on screen now. This will clearly outline the boss's melee distance, which you do not want to enter unless you are dodging lightning, and it will also highlight the radius of the Abyssal Pathfinder. For the Abyssal Pathfinder, I would not recommend increasing the radius anymore to avoid the temptation of running ahead and diagonally during the Enrage Phase, which can get you killed, but I'll cover what I mean by this in more detail later. Next up, let's go over the changes from the normal encounter. In addition to increases in its baseline stats, the boss's health is trebled from 900 to 2700, a tornado spawns at 50% which can deal around 40 damage if it reaches you, and the Enrage Phase attacks are now only 1 tick apart. That's pretty much it. The static debris that fall between attack sequence and in the final Enrage Phase do fall in a plus pattern, but unlike the normal encounter, you will always be stunning the Leviathan before the end of an attack sequence. This is because it can force the Abyssal Pathfinder to spawn in what will seem at the time a random location if a set of debris falls on the Pathfinder's spawn location. Additionally, these will also become troublesome to deal with during the Enrage Phase, as they can force you into melee range, or just as worse, backwards and into the tornado and out of the protection of the aura. For gear setups, you'll want to bring a setup somewhat similar to the one shown on screen now. A T-bow and a web weaver bow is a must, as this will drastically increase your chances of killing the Leviathan in the Enrage Phase. Next, you'll ideally want to be bringing Missouri, but Armadil or even God D-Hide will do just fine. You can opt to camp or bring an Elite Void with you as a switch in the final phase, but realistically I wouldn't stress over bringing it in the first few attempts, as you won't see or realise the benefit of it whilst you're still learning. And even then, the benefit is only slight. I've tried it myself, both camping and as a switch, and in all honesty, it won't make or break your run. Of note, you'll want to bring at least 3 Phoenix necklaces to help you along in the Enrage Phase, as well as some combo food to quickly top your health back up, a stamina to minimise the run energy drain, and of course runes for Shadow Barrage. Now let's get into the fight. To start with, you'll want to have your chat open and enter the room to aggro the Leviathan. Immediately spec the Leviathan with your web weaver bow to poison the boss for that little bit of extra damage during the fight. Then Shadow Barrage to stun the boss. Then hit the back and check the chat for the first ability. In this example it was the lightning attack, so as you do in the normal fight you'll just want to be alternating between the corner spots and running over the lightning. Now for the boulder placement, you'll want to be stacking these in very specific locations as you can see on screen now. as later on during the fight these will allow you to reliably hide behind from the explosion and escape the tornado later on. The boulders that fire are a single tick apart, but take 2 ticks to land, so by moving for a single tick, then either attacking or waiting for that additional tick, you're able to stack 2 boulders on a single tile. So by hitting on tiles 1 and 3, you're able to stack 5 boulders quite neatly. It's simple when you think about it, but admittedly it's only something you'll be able to master with practice. So to begin with, you'll want to start at tile 1 and hit the boss. As soon as you do, move to tile 2, and this is where your different coloured destination and true tile will help. As you move, once you see the destination tile change to your true tile colour, wait a single tick and then move to the next square. Hit on the 3rd tile and then repeat the process until the end. Once you're past the 5th tile, do one final hit and then run behind the back of the boulders to hide from the explosion. You want to repeat this process of stunning the boss, hitting, dodging lightning and placing boulders all around the room until you reach 50%. What you want to do is that whilst you're dodging the lightning, you're planning for your next set of steps. So make sure that when you finish any lightning dodging, you immediately run to a corner whose opposite does not already have boulders placed in a line, so you can immediately stun, run to the back, hit, and then begin placing boulders seamlessly. Once you reach 50%, a tornado will spawn which will begin to follow you around the room for the rest of the fight. And if it does reach you, you'll take some damage, but don't be afraid of it. It only hits 40 or so damage, so you can easily top yourself back up. You'll have a small window of respite to run away from where it hit you until it respawns from the original hit location. In terms of the lightning skip, you can do the 4-tile lightning skip pattern, and there are other guides out there that which use it, but in all honesty, I wouldn't bother. Just run around the boss, kite the tornado, and hit the Leviathan whenever lightning is far away from you so as not to take lightning damage. Yes, it is less damage and time efficient, but in my opinion, it doesn't really matter. You aren't going for speed times for your first kill, and it's much more relaxed this way. Next up, you'll have to deal with a tornado for the boulder skips, and as you've taken time to set up 4 neat placements around the room, all you need to do is simply walk from one white tile to the other. The reason you've placed these in this particular pattern is for 2 reasons. The first is that a single tile gap in the boulders acts as a reliable escape from which you can walk towards and run out of after the explosion. The second is that we
need to build a wall.
Yes, a wall, and it seems trivial why, but it's helpful later on during the Enrage phase. Think of it like this. You're in the Enrage phase, your eyes are laser focused on the incoming projectiles, ears honed on the sounds, ass clenched and hands shaking like your first time at Jad. Your clicks aren't always going to be accurate and precise. So movement wise, you want to minimize the possibility of misclicking and pathing in a manner you definitely don't want to path in. I've had it before where I've clicked behind one of the boulder barriers or into a small pocket of boulders, only to path backwards into the tornado, outside of the abyssal aura, or allow the tornado to close the distance. What you're essentially wanting to create is a sort of corridor, which can follow all the way around the room. It's the small details like these as well as a few tricks I'll go through later which all add up and will help you secure the finish. You're going to continue dodging lightning, building walls, all the way to around 25%. And what's key to note is, you never build a wall on the southern edge, as you need the extra room space later. Now once you reach 25%, what you'll need to do is begin preparing to push the Leviathan under 20%, or 540 health. You'll want to practice your mental arithmetic as you need to make sure you work out, for yourself, what your max hit is with your own setup, so that, for example, if the Leviathan is at 600 health, I know that in the gear setup on screen now, I can easily hit over a 60. So for this reason, you might want to either brew down, switch rigor off, or even just switch to your webweaver bow to get the Leviathan as close to 540 health as you can. This way, you can minimize the number of hits you need to do during that Enrage phase. At this point, the Leviathan is oven ready to enter the Enrage phase, and for this part I'm going to slow this down as there is a lot to take in. With the tile pattern I use in this video, the Abyssal Pathfinder will always spawn in the northeastern corner, not the northwestern corner. So if you plan on applying this guide, get used to it quickly. When entering the Enrage phase, you need to ensure that the tornado is following you from the maximum distance possible, so that as you push the Leviathan under 20%, the tornado is not cutting across the room, and so that you're not going to enter into a head-on collision with it. From this corner tile, you'll need to barrage the Leviathan to stun it and then run to the yellow line on the opposing side and hit the boss and move to the tile marked 1, and wait until the Abyssal Pathfinder spawns. With this route, you're running the maximum distance possible away from the tornado, as you're at the furthest possible position in the room. During this lag time, you'll want to equip your webweaver bow and phoenix necklace. From attacking the back of the Leviathan, you have 7 ticks before the Abyssal Pathfinder spawns. On the same tick that that white outline spawns, you are free to click and spec the boss with your Web Weaver bow. Immediately after, you're going to move to the next marked tile and spec again. Now at this point, you've either hit the lottery and whatever you're originally praying against will be the first projectile, or if you're unfortunate, you'll have to switch your prayer at the same time. From this point on, you're only going to be hitting the boss with your T-bow, but you're only going to attempt to hit the boss when you can see that there is at least a window of 2 consecutive same style attacks, ideally 3. You will never attempt to hit the boss if you do not see this as a condition. If you're watching my guide, you're not a Woox, you're not an Articon, a Sync, or a Monkey Gnome. It's extremely challenging to attack on the correct tick and keep a safe distance from the tornado and effectively switch prayers tick after tick after tick. You run the risk of anti-flicking and dying within 3 ticks if you mess up, if you're unlucky enough with the incoming damage. This was the single biggest hurdle for myself, and it was only until I realised this that I progressed further and further into the Enrage phase. If done correctly, you only need to hit the boss 7 times, and during this time only make your way around 75% of the room. At times, you will take damage, and the temptation to triple eat can feel very real. However, you cannot eat your way out of the damage, or the space that you have available. Your best chance of survival is to keep switching prayers and hitting the boss wherever you see a double or treble same attack style condition. Now is a good time to move on to tips and tricks, but whilst we're in the Enrage phase, let's start here. The tiles you'll see marked on screen should be used as soft guides for when and where to move and hit on, depending on where you are in your attack cycle. These tiles are deliberately on the outermost edges of the room, and it's along the outermost edge that you should be moving. This is because while you effectively run at 2 tiles per tick, the Tornado and the Pathfinder only move at a single tile per tick, so you're effectively moving 1 tile per tick faster than the Pathfinder and the Tornado. So if you get where I'm going with this, the Pathfinder walks on a set path around the room close to the boss, and as the Tornado is following you on an unrestricted path, if you run on the same line as the Pathfinder, you will outpace it. Move out of its protective aura, and the Tornado will cut corners and close the distance as you wait for the Pathfinder to move back in range. Stick to the outermost edges of the room to maximise your running distance and also minimise your chance of getting chomped by the boss. You'll need to save 2 specs for the Enrage phase. Specking and attacking early with a Web Weaver bow without the benefits of the Abyssal Aura will cost you around 100 damage. And trust me, you need that 100 damage. That's 2 additional T-bow hits. So to help you time this perfectly, in those 7 ticks of lag time between hitting the back of the Leviathan and waiting for that white box of the Abyssal Pathfinder to spawn, the instant you hit the back of the Leviathan, you have 5 ticks until you can attack again with any weapon. To force you to wait an additional 2 ticks, you can eat a Karamwan to add a 2-tick delay, then all you need to do is just spam click the Leviathan. I can't stress this one enough, but in the Enrage phase, rotate your camera so that the Leviathan is closest to your inventory and prayer interface to minimise the distance your eyes need to travel. The difference it makes is night and day, and I learned the hard way. Do not push the Leviathan under 50% until you have 4 boulder barriers set up, and do not push the Leviathan under 50% whilst hiding from an explosion. You're basically going to tank a tornado for no reason. And finally, don't be disheartened. I alone have died to this more times than I'd like to say or admit. Some justifiably, others not so much. And the reason I say that is, watch mine or any of the example kill videos you see out there, and watch how spoon-fed some of the prayer switches are in the Enrage phase, and I can assure you that there will be a lot. But behind the scenes there will be a greater sum of terribly unfair prayer switching that only you will experience. Sometimes you just need that one attempt with good RNG and you are sailing. Just pray for those attempts every time. And that brings us to the end of the guide. If you found it useful, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and I will see you in the next one.
Bye, have a great time.